Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. All right, you guys. Got the. I guess you could say this is my new studio or whatever you want to call it. Since y'all motherfuckers always complaining about scenery and all that type of shit, so you got some scenery. But nevertheless, man, I want to talk about you know, um, the state of the black boxer. How unappreciated the black boxer is, and how basically the media and certain people in the boxing public have went out of their way to try to discredit the dominant black fighter. When Muhammad Ali made his debut in, you know, the early 60s, Muhammad Ali was something that most people had never saw before in their life. This dude was 6'3" and a half. This dude was lightning quick, and he was a heavyweight, but he fought like a welterweight or a middleweight, and they had never saw nothing like that. Muhammad Ali, I guess you could say he was sort of like the Kevin Durant of his era because, like I said, nobody saw nothing like Kevin Durant, a guy that's 6'11", that should be possibly a center and or more than likely a power forward. Kevin Durant plays some power forward sometimes, but he mostly plays small forward. But a dude that can move like a two guard. They've never saw nothing like that with Kevin Durant. And Muhammad Ali was pretty much dominant, in most of his fights. He had some adversity in some of his fights, but he always found a way to win because he was smart. He had good footwork. He was lightning quick, and then we all know what happened, how he lost his belts, and then, unfortunately he got sick, and he was sick for pretty much years, all the way until his passing a couple of years ago. But then you look at what's going on now, and that Manny Pacquiao stuff yesterday with how fake he was being when it came to Pernell Whitaker, because I'm inspired by Pernell Whitaker to make this video because a lot of people didn't appreciate how good Pernell Whitaker was, which they have went out of their way to discredit the black fighter because the elusive, slick black fighter was pretty much dominant. So instead of saying that they was dominant, they came with this fake narrative about they fight like cowards, they're runners and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at the art of boxing is to hit and not get hit. What started with Muhammad Ali, it went on to get implemented with boxers such as Sugar Ray Leonard, Roy Jones Jr., then on to Roy Jones Jr., Floyd Mayweather, some other guys now, Guillermo Ringadal, Andre Ward, all those type of guys, you know, dominant black fighters who are so good to where they try to dismiss what they do, call them runners and all that kind of stuff, or call them boring. But then you look at boxers that don't look like us, the guys that's on the come up, the Caleb Plants, the Gabriel Flores Juniors, who say they were inspired by a lot of black fighters. Now people seem to be okay with that. Then you look at guys like Vasil Lomachenko, where they say he's a masterful boxer, but everybody knows that's a black fighter style. But then they love him, but then they call us runners. And this has been going on for years to try to discredit the dominant, slick black fighter. Like I said before, I don't give a damn about people getting mad about what I say in my videos because I'm keeping it 100. A lot of people just don't want to talk about this type of stuff because, like I said, they're afraid. They're afraid of the backlash. But it needs to be said, somebody need to stand up for these dudes. It started, what it was, the reason why they started trying to come up with that running title is because what you would call a lot of the fighters, the traditional brawler, stand up and trade with you type of dudes, they would have a hard time dealing with these type of fighters. unless they landed, a punch that hurt them and did damage to them, then they would have a hard time beating them. It wasn't like slick black fighters were impossible to beat. They just were very difficult. Very difficult. They wasn't invincible. They wasn't impossible, but they were very difficult. You know, and like I said, a lot of times the media didn't like that. They needed to find a way to try to bring in these other type of fighters. And what better way than to criticize these type of fighters by having what you would call purposely white broadcasters. And most of them never boxed in their life. They would try to critique this type of style and say the fans didn't want to see it and that type of stuff. But if you look at the statistics and the history, the most famous boxers in the world that ever lived fought like Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather. Muhammad Ali and Floyd Mayweather, like them or not, are arguably two of the most famous boxers in the history of boxing. Even if you don't watch boxing, you know who Floyd Mayweather is, or you know who Ali is. Those are the two names that transcend boxing. Whether you think Floyd is this or whether you think Floyd is that, and I know a lot of people try to discredit Floyd, black or white, just because of Floyd's behavior outside of the ring. But like I said, I'm not never going to discredit Floyd the boxer. I don't give a damn about none of that stuff he said when it comes to his skill set. But this has been going on for years. Why do you think when it comes to these boxing matches, why don't they never have two black color commentary people calling fights? Why it always have to be white guys? Now I already know in the 60s I understood that. It is what it is. 70s I understood that. But the 90s, the 2000s now, why is that? Because they know you would get a fair assessment. You would get a fair assessment and you would get a fair appreciation. I never, like I said, I stand by what I said. I always thought Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant were racist. I stand by that. This was did on purpose. You would get Larry Merchant every time he did a post-fight interview with a black fighter. He would always try to lightweight disrespect them and try to match make for them. But when it came to the non-blacks, like how they would kiss Oscar De La Hoya's ass, then it was all good. And I want you to understand something. Bernard Hopkins, I'll put him in that category too. Go look at Bernard Hopkins versus Kelly Pavlik. And Kelly Pavlik was a dude that defeated Jermaine Taylor twice. He had the belts, if I'm not mistaken. And when he fought Bernard Hopkins, most people thought that he was going to knock Bernard Hopkins out. I'm not going to lie. I thought Kelly Pavlik was going to win that fight. But Bernard Hopkins schooled him. Listen to that fight towards, I think it might be the 10th or 11th round. Maybe even the 12th. Larry Merchant was visibly upset that Bernard Hopkins was dominating Kelly Pavlik. You can hear him say, Bob Arum should have never made this fight. He was angry. If I had had any clear indication that Larry Merchant was a racist, it was that fight right there. That verified everything I thought about him, what I thought about boxing as a whole. This is being did on purpose. The conspiracy to discredit the black fighter. And to make it look like that style of fighting is boring and all that type of stuff. And I'm just going to say the main group of people that have been putting that out there. It started with Oscar De La Hoya and his comments about Pernell Whitaker when he said black fighters fight like cowards and all that kind of stuff. But it was, like I said before, this is the same Oscar De La Hoya that was on his bicycle the last 4 rounds against Felix Trinidad. But you always catch the hypocrisy and the double standards when it comes to talking about this subject. People don't want to talk about this because it's being did on purpose. You look at this whole situation with Terrence Crawford, where you got a guy like Vasil Lomachenko, who has went out of his way to say Terrence Crawford is the best fighter on the planet. But you still have people that want to say he's the number one pound for pound fighter on the planet. And I think nobody believes that with common sense. I keep telling you guys this is being did on purpose. It's being did on purpose. Look, go back to Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalov. Andre Ward had beat Sergey Kovalov, whether you thought it was controversial or not. But they still refuse to anoint him the pound for pound best fighter on the planet. Whether you thought Sergey Kovalov won or not, Andre Ward won that fight, so he should have rightfully got his title as the best pound for pound fighter on the planet. And then Andre Ward runs it back, beats him, stops him. Most people anoint him pound for pound best fighter on the planet, but then you had, Teddy Atlas try to disrespect Andre Ward and Terrence Crawford by saying that he thought Vasily Lomachenko, a dude who don't even got, at the time, 15 fights in, is better than Andre Ward and Terrence Crawford, who got a combined like almost 60 fights in with no losses. That was just blatant disrespect towards the work ethic that they put in. To say that some dude that got let in 16 fights in is better than those two guys, and who also has the loss. It's just insulting to hear people say stuff like that. Like I said, it's being done on purpose. And then you hear these people on YouTube make these comments about black fighters, and then they get mad when I call them out and they say, well, why are you making this about race? Because you're making it about race. You look at how when a black fighter is dominant in a fight, it's always that he's a runner and all that type of stuff. Oh, he runs. Look at what Manny Pacquiao fans did to Floyd Mayweather when Floyd Mayweather dominated him. And they're going to do it again. And they get mad when they get called out. I'm going to continue to call you guys out. Nobody ain't afraid of y'all. Nobody don't care what you think. And like I said before, I don't have to watch my tongue. This is a plot that's been going on in the last 20 years to do this. They just needed the right type of fighters. And they tried to do it with Vasil Lomachenko. But the funny thing is, Vasil Lomachenko don't have no fan base. And I made a video like about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Go back to 2015 or 2016. I made a video saying that white and Mexican versions of Floyd Mayweather was on their way. If I'm a Mexican or a white fighter, why would I sit up there and stand in front of somebody and try to trade punches and get hit in the face to try to look like, you know what I'm saying, to try to look cool? And first of all, let's just get to that anyway. Even in a street fight, you don't let nobody hit you. I don't know nobody that's ever. This is why I know most of these people that be talking that running stuff, they ain't never had no actual fight. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I done had plenty of street fights and I ain't never let nobody purposely hit me just to prove how tough I am. So when you talk like that, you already showed me you ain't never been in no fight before in your life. Or you ain't never got punched in your face before. So please cut the shit. These videos need to be made. People need to put these videos out. Because like I said, all this fake love for Pernell Whitaker that now people have, I remember how they used to treat him, No way, shape, or form did he lose to Oscar De La Hoya or Julio Cesar Chavez. But like I said, this was something that they needed to do with the dominant black fighter, diminish their skill set. Saying, like I said, look at the history. Roy Jones Jr. in his early years, he couldn't be hit. He was damn near unhittable. Floyd Mayweather, it's rare footage of him rarely being nailed because he was such a good defensive fighter. Floyd ain't never been put on his ass his whole career in 50 fights. That speaks volumes. Says a lot about him. You know, that's just real talk. Muhammad Ali, he started to decline, but when he was young, good Lord, you know, Andre Ward rarely took punishment in fights. He was hard to hit flush. If you look at the Sergey Kovalov fight, he got he got nailed in the first fight. But if you look at the second fight, Sergey Kovalov just couldn't hit Andre Ward flush. It's a difference between like tagging somebody, you know, and hitting them flush. He got tagged a few times, but he never got kapowed. So that's why they would put that label on Andre Ward too. He's boring. He's this. He's that. Y'all got to catch this shit. It's just the truth. But anyway, I've said enough. Y'all will figure it out. This your boy Town Biz. I'm out.